Hi there, my name is Aaron Short. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me today. It's Wednesday today, and I've got a really cool interview for you. Now, this guy is a big fan of acoustic guitars and, more importantly, pickups. I know that because he's demoed them on his website, and we'll talk about that later on, but we have a lot in common. So please join us. Please let us know where you're watching from, and please ask your questions in the comments as well, so I can address them to our guest, who is the one and only Doug Young. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great. Hi.
Hi, thank you
Glad to
so
be here.
much.
Thanks for having.
No, thank you so much for doing this. It's really great. I'm really excited to get to know you and talk to you about your life and your thoughts on acoustic guitars. It's going to be really great. So let's get straight
We'll
into it.
see what. Okay.
I feel like I know you because I've watched you on YouTube. I feel like since the beginning of YouTube, I've seen you demoing acoustic guitar products for Acoustic Guitar magazine, right? So I feel like I know you, but I don't actually know anything about you really. So I want to start with my first question that I ask all my guests. Where are you from originally, and what first got you into music?
Okay. Sure. Well, I'm out in California now, but that's not where I was from originally. I grew up in Ohio, in the Midwest, Northeast Ohio, pretty close to Kent State University, Cleveland, Akron area. Um, I started. I don't know. I always played music. My family was kind of musical. I took piano lessons when I was very young from my grandmother, who was a piano teacher. I'm told I wasn't a very good student. I didn't care for it very much and didn't practice. But later on, I sort of started getting interested in guitar, and I don't really remember why. It just it was an instrument that kind of appealed to me. And by junior high, I was taken a little more seriously and started playing with some friends and bands and that kind of thing. So we had rock bands that played high school dances and played some of the local clubs and things like that. So I mostly played electric and mostly cover bands and all the sort of things that many of us do growing up. Um, Got into some more types of music. I was drawn to jazz. I played in jazz band in high school. Played guitar in college. Played guitar in the jazz band in college, and then really played electric. And I did it full time in the Midwest. Traveled around a lot of the East Coast and Midwest in bands, playing anything anybody would pay us for, playing electric guitar for a long time. The acoustic stuff kind of came later, although I always dabbled a little bit with acoustic guitar.
We actually have a lot in common. I've actually noticed from the guests on here that a lot of people start by playing the piano and then move into guitar in their kind of teenage years. And I did exactly the same thing. And I also played electric in a band, same thing.
Hmm.
And the reason I started playing acoustic is I realized that I was the singer in the band that played electric guitar, so I realized I could do solo gigs, and the acoustic guitar seemed to be more of a thing to do with for solo gigs. So it's
Sure.
interesting. It's interesting to hear this. I have to say, all the guests so far, well, a lot of us start on piano, and then we find the guitar, and we connect with that, and then we find our way. I didn't know you played electric. I was going to ask you that question today because you're always known to be playing acoustic. And I have to say to you, when I'm at NAM, people come up to me and they say, "Oh, you're the guy that plays acoustic." And I always wonder why they say that. They talk like electric and acoustic are two different things. Do you think that the electric guitar and the acoustic guitar are completely different things? What's your view of that?
Well, I think it depends on how you approach them. They don't have to be the same. And it's interesting that a lot of people uh, that you think of as acoustic guitarists also play electric even now. Lawrence Juber's been doing a stream every day, and sometimes he's playing acoustic and then he digs out his electric and rocks out on it. So yeah, you can go back and forth. But definitely for me, it was two different styles of music. With electric guitar, I was usually the lead guitar player in the band, and it was all about, I mean, either playing the guitar parts, the rhythm parts, or playing lead solos and things like that. Whereas with acoustic, I immediately gravitated towards solo instrumental fingerstyle. So to me, that ended up being quite different. My path to getting into acoustic was that I moved out to the Bay Area, um, and actually I was playing in bands and began to see that maybe I wasn't going to make it that way too well. And I jumped over into the other area that I've actually worked on all my life, which is more of electronics and computers and technology. So I moved out to Silicon Valley, got a day job. And when I got out here, I didn't know any musicians. So I had an electric guitar, but it's not so satisfying to sit in your house and play electric guitar by yourself. It's just not without a band. It doesn't make as much sense. Although there are styles that you could play on electric, electric archtop, or if you're a jazz player. But for me, it was kind of like, well, what am I going to do if I'm playing all by myself? Well, maybe I'll get back to that acoustic stuff I've dabbled with, and immediately gravitated towards the idea that I wanted something to do that I could play just totally by myself, whether it's at home or whether I go out and play a gig and not need a band. And it was mostly just because I didn't know musicians in this new area that I moved into.
Interesting. So, what are some of the kind of albums and artists that you liked in the early years that you used to listen to all the time?
Oh, probably nothing too radically different from many people, but I mean, I was always a big Jeff Beck fan. So Blow by Blow was a big one, big influence. Huge Larry Carlton fan. So the Steely Dan stuff that he did, as well as his solo albums, Jazz Crusaders albums that he played on, those were all big influences. I like the Allman Brothers. So a lot of time spent learning both Dickie Betts and Duane Allman licks. So all that kind of stuff was an electric influence on me. Phil Keaggy also. That was, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Phil was from Northeast Ohio. So we would go see him play every opportunity we had. I've met him a couple times back then, and he was just a huge influence on the electric side. And then of course later he also got into acoustic.
Yeah, he's a great player. Phil's a great player. Yeah. No, I just find it interesting that people think that they're two almost completely separate things. When they are essentially the same instrument. I just find it interesting how people perceive people. It's like Tommy Emmanuel when he breaks out the electric. It's incredible.
Sure. Yep.
So did you study? Did you study the guitar?
I was pretty much self-taught for the most part when I was younger, but I mean, I had this background. I played piano. I'd also played saxophone and clarinet and a few things in high school band, and took music theory classes there. And I took music theory in college as well. But on the guitar itself, I was pretty much self-taught until I was in college, and then I studied with a few people. There was a local jazz guy in Akron who was sort of the main go-to old school jazz guy, and we'd work on West Montgomery pieces and things like that. I studied a little bit with Howard Roberts for a while on a week-long program. So I had sort of that kind of thing, going to different workshops and also occasionally studying with an actual teacher. But most of what I've done has been self-taught. The whole stuff with acoustic guitar has been quite useful to me, which I imagine you want to talk about later. But as somebody doing a lot of articles for acoustic guitar, I've met and sat and had a chance to ask questions of just about I don't know, a ton of well-known acoustic players. So even though those are not formal instruction, it was a great learning thing for me, and I hope I picked something up from every one of them.
Let's talk about that. So tell me how you went from that to working with Acoustic Guitar Magazine. How did you get the job? How did that happen?
Well, I was playing around the Bay Area here, and I think I'd done some gigs with Taya Garkin, who's was one of the editors there at Acoustic Guitar, and I met Scott Dygard, who was there. That was about maybe 2005-ish, somewhere in there. So I was out playing, doing my own instrumental stuff. I had a CD out, and I was doing some gigs with them. And I got the idea of writing a book on DADGAD. So I thought I would write kind of an instructional book on DADGAD that was kind of like, if you wanted to start from scratch and learn guitar, what would it be to step by step go through learning acoustic fingerstyle guitar, but in DADGAD tuning. So I thought, well, before I write a book, maybe I should try a little article. Before you try for writing something big, start small and see how that works. So I contacted the guys at Acoustic Guitar and said, would you be interested in this article? They said, sure, let's try it. And I wrote that first article for them. And that was it went pretty well. It was a learning experience, learning how to condense the information I wanted to present into a pretty small, tight article, because all the articles in magazines, they don't have a lot of space. So that was the first one, and then that was really, I was great. I've written an article for a magazine now. I'm now on to the book, But pretty soon they were calling me back saying, "Hey, we got other stuff. Would you like to do it?" And one of the first assignments, I might have done a couple little things for them, but one of the first things they did was they called me one day and said, "We've got this idea. We want to have a series of articles called private lessons." So that's what I was alluding to earlier. And the idea would be you basically go take a lesson from somebody and write it up as an article for us and have some video and have some transcriptions, and you'd talk about the person's style, but it's all sort of couched in the idea that it's a private lesson for the readers. And I said, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Like, who would I do?" And they said, "Well, the first one we've got lined up is Lawrence Juber, and the second one is Peppino D'Agostino."
Wow.
And so we'll put you in touch with them. And I'd actually already met Peppino. He's local here too. But so we did those, and that just got it. It was actually very good. I probably did those for almost 5 years. So I've done that kind of private lesson thing with Lawrence, with Pierre Ben Cezanne, Tommy Emmanuel, number of people. So the chance to sit down with them and be this close to them and be able to say, "Wait, what did you just do?" And that was all really, really terrific.
That's really cool. That's really so you contacted them. You contacted Acoustic Guitar Magazine. You approached them. Is that how it worked?
The initial contact was just me presenting an idea. It helped that I'd already known them. I knew them because I'd played some gigs with them. I think it's tough for somebody to break into that. I actually have a lot of people say, "I've got an idea for an article. I want to, can you help me get them in touch?" And I can tell them how to contact the people there. Taya and Scott are no longer at Acoustic Guitar. It's a new crowd of people. And on one hand, they're always looking for articles and ideas. But on the other hand, these magazines often have a roadmap sketched out well in advance. They may know what their articles are going to be for the next year. I've pitched lots of ideas to them. They don't take them all. Sometimes they do. Other times they say, "Well, that doesn't fit right now," or "That's a great idea. We'll put it in the hopper maybe next year." That you just never know. But it doesn't hurt to pitch ideas. And it's definitely a learning experience to write for the magazine because it can be very short, especially if it's going to be published in print. Some of the articles, like feature articles, are maybe 2,000 words. You can do a lot in that. But other articles, you might have a gear review or a short review or even a short lesson. Some of the lessons were only 500 to 800 words. That's only 3 or 4 paragraphs, and plus some music. And so you have to be kind of prepared to write really tightly, and you end up counting words. That was always an interesting exercise. I'd write what I wanted to say, and I'd say, "Oh, well, it's twice as long as it can be." So now you're down to counting words. Does this word need to be there? Does this sentence need to be there? And hopefully you can craft it down to where you're still saying what you want to say and fit it into the space. So for some people, it sounds like a good idea, but it's more work than maybe some people want to go to actually write.
Well, I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. I feel like I'd like that because I don't like writing long articles. I like to be short and concise. So we have the opposite problem. That's why I like YouTube. And we'll talk about the YouTube thing later as well.
No, I mean it's actually a really good thing to write what you want and then tweak it, because mostly you tend to go on and say more than you need to say. On the other hand, it's nice to not have the restriction. I just did an article for Acoustic Guitar on streaming, trying to get people on what all the gear is and all this. I actually thought about talking to you, looking for quotes, but I ended up talking to so many people, I had more input than I needed. But that was another one. They said, well, if it was in a magazine, it'd be 500 to 800 words, but we're going to do it online. So I ended up giving them 3,000 words, and it didn't matter because it was online.
You did that. You did it pretty fast. How long does it take you to write that?
That I did in a week. That was fairly quick. I mean, there was a sense of urgency about that article right now, due to the current situation. But these things are. You get faster. I'd say early on when I first wrote for them, it would take me a long time. And now I've gotten to where pretty much as long as I know what I'm going to say. And in this case, I reached out to 3 or 4 different people. I talked to Al Petaway about a show that he had just streamed. Talked to Stevie Coyle, who does the streaming thing from Mighty Fine Guitars, and they gave me lots of tips, and a lot of the article just wrote itself just by pulling from the stuff they told me.
People are asking me to tell them how I'm streaming this, and as I said to you before we started, it's hard because everyone has a different computer, a different phone, a different camera, a different interface. So I guess you can give like an overview. I guess that's something I would talk a lot about because there's so many options. What I might do is just talk about my setup one day, like what I use specifically, just to give people some kind of insight into this. Because I've learned a lot. I didn't stream like this until a few weeks ago. So I'm learning as I go, and I've learned a lot already. So it's been good though. I think this is a great outlet for musicians. I think there's a lot of good things that can come from this. Like we wouldn't have had this conversation without this today.
Exactly.
Like I said, I never run into you at NAMM or anything, so I'm so grateful we can connect virtually like this. It's a wonderful thing, and even collaborating with musicians over the internet and things like that. It's really great. So your main
This is an interesting time. I'm actually working on another project of my own right now. I'm working on it's going to be an ebook on collaborating online for musicians and taking a bigger picture of it. Not just streaming, but how we collaborate.
I'll give you a quote for that one. I want to be in the book.
Okay.
I want to be in the book.
Okay. I'll put you in.
No, I won't. I don't want to talk about myself too much, but I did. I'm working on a cover of The Gambler because I met Kenny Rogers' family a few months ago.
Oh.
And I stumbled into someone's live stream, and they had Johnny Highland in there, and he mentioned that he's now doing some collaborations. So I emailed him, and he's now on my cover of The Gambler.
Terrific.
So isn't that great? Like that.
Yeah,
that would never have happened. I love that stuff. And I just saw Craig Thatcher last night. He's done a version of All You Need Is Love. Sounds really great. It's been some really great things created from this. It's positive.
I think it's an interesting thing because on one hand we're being restricted right now and we can't play out live. On the other hand, that just exactly that you can connect to people that you would never be able to say, come play my gig tonight.
Yeah. The only thing I wish we could do is I wish we could play in real time. I wish we could jam without the latency, but that's asking a lot.
I've been exploring that and seeing there are some options.
Okay.
They're early, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah, if you ever hear of anything, please let us know because for me that's the final thing. Also, seeing the audience, to see the audience and to jam, so almost like the real thing, So, Acoustic Guitar Magazine was an awesome gig to get, right? Really amazing. You met people, you had a regular gig. So, did that lead to other things? Because you've done more than that. Obviously, you've written books. Tell us about the other things you've done and how that job got you other jobs, or whether it did or whether it didn't. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I think the main thing acoustic guitar has done is let me connect with a lot of people. And, like you said, you'd seen my YouTube videos, and that's a common experience. I'll walk into a guitar store somewhere and somebody will say, you look familiar. Can't place why. And I can guess why, but we don't always make the connection. But so that's helped. And it's helped that I've gotten to know a lot of people. Some of the people that I've met through the magazine and through things we've done some stuff with. But I have a number of other areas of interest. I mentioned I came out here to work in tech. That's a part people don't know about, totally unrelated to music, is that I've worked for a number of the large tech companies out here in Silicon Valley, and worked for a bunch of big internet companies and done a bunch of other things like that. So that's a total different side, but I also kind of bring that into the music. So there's playing guitar, which I'd like to think that's what I do with all my time is actually sit and play and so on. But in reality, I've got a lot of interests that are probably come partly from my tech background, whether it's recording or doing all the video stuff. I've done recording for other people, mixed and mastered CDs for people, done a bunch of video production for people, done different ranging from local stuff that I've done here. I've been working with a local TV station and produced a series of videos for a bunch of other local musicians. So a lot of those people I met through connections like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same. I love technology. I'm interesting because I love technology. I also love, raw acoustic kind of music. But I guess that's why I went down the acoustic guitar pickup route, because I like the technology side of that. And we'll get to that later on. I haven't said hello. We've got a nice crowd in here today. I haven't said hi to everyone, but I am putting their comments up on the screen as we go. That's my way of saying hi and including everyone. But we've got Patsy Smith from the UK. We've got Vic from San Bruno, California. We've got Corazon from Yonkers. We've got Glistening Cabana from Australia. We've got Chris Decker from Brooklyn. We've got Jason Carter from Germany. We've got Mr. Hubigs from Washington. I think that's right. WA is Washington, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm learning. I do live in America. I'm getting there. Maury's Music. Hi, Maury. How you doing? Alec Bourne. He's in Europe. And we've got Rusty Benson from Tupelo, birthplace of Elvis Presley, and lots of wonderful music. We got people from all over the world. This is really great.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I know a few of those names.
You've got some fans. We got 23 people watching right now. It's very good. Oh, we've got someone else here. Mark from Ohio. Hey, Mark. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you've got any questions as we go, please feel free to ask them, and I'll put them to Doug. Oh, Taya just came in.
Oh, great. Hi, Taya.
Taya Gherkin. He just added me on Facebook. Watch out. I might be asking you for an interview. Be careful. I'm on the search right now. Okay, so let's get into it. Acoustic guitar amplification.
Ah, yes.
Are you ready to open the can of worms?
Hit the can of worms, that's for sure.
What was the first pickup you had in one of your guitars? Acoustic guitars.
Oh, wow. Probably a Fishman undersaddle, probably the old Matrix.
Right. Me too.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of in the early days, that was the main pickup that everybody had. So I'm sure I had that in a number of early guitars. And at first I didn't think anything about it. Hey, it's a pickup, plug it in. Doesn't sound quite like I expect, but it works and you can be heard. So in the early days, you were just happy if you could amplify the guitar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's actually, it's amazing to me when you think back. Sometimes I'll see old videos and you sort of wonder how people did it. I saw an old early clip of Jethro Tull recently on YouTube, and he's up there playing an acoustic. And I'm thinking, man, this is like, I don't know, 60s or early 70s. There really weren't that many pickups available back then. And it looked to me like he had a little clip-on microphone or something on the guitar. So people were trying to do that in early days and before there was really the technology that we have today to do it.
We had Dick Boak on, and I was researching Martin before he came on, and the same thing. I saw people on old videos playing the Dreadnoughts into a microphone, and I'm thinking to myself, why don't we just do that now?
Well, and you can, of course. I mean, a lot of the bluegrass bands still use the one mic technique, and people can use bands, but a lot of people want to play at rock band volumes, and that's where it falls apart.
Yeah, and they also now want to do looping and go through effects and things like that.
Sure.
Taya said okay to the interview, so I've got him on record now. That's awesome. Right. Thank you very much. And Kathy says hi, Doug.
Hi, Kathy.
So you had a Fishman on the saddle. I did as well, and I was very happy with it because I didn't know any better. And I'm not knocking that pickup. It's obviously one of the first, and it's still used today in certain guitars, and it does a great job. But I remember clearly it was a duo gig I had where the bass player turns to me at one point and says, "That guitar sounds terrible." And suddenly something snapped in my brain. I was like, okay, it's like when someone says something to you and it really gets to you, And I also just happened then to be doing an open mic session in London. And I met this guy, Tommy Rando, who's an Australian player that had the mini Maton guitar. Around the same time, I started to watch Tommy Emmanuel, and I started to think about those kind of pickups. And I got a mini Maton, and again, it sounded really great. So that actually stuck me for a while, and it wasn't until I moved to America that I decided I wanted to have a guitar that sounded amazing plugged in and amazing unplugged. I fell in love with the Anthem, and I felt like a couple of guitars, I felt like it changed the sound of the guitar. This is a whole new debate, but I felt like I wanted that sound, but with nothing in the guitar. Now that's kind of completely, I now realize that's kind of completely unrealistic, although we can talk about IRs later on, because we just had Lloyd Baggs on here. He was talking about the soundscape, and I think James is on that. James May is on next week, I think. So
great.
Lots of impulse response chat, which would be really cool. But yeah, maybe that is an option. But obviously then people say, I don't want to carry a pedal around, right? I want it all in the guitar, but I want nothing in the guitar. That's so hard to achieve, as you know, and it's something that took me on a long journey and indeed is the reason I started doing the YouTube channel again, to post those. I call them reviews, but it's really just me playing a few chords and talking about my experience with them in a live environment. But what's cool about you is you, on your website, and check it out, everyone, on your website, you have demos of pretty much every pickup around, right? Audio recordings of every pickup. Why did you do that? Why did you start doing
I'm not
that?
real up to date. But I've got about 100, 150 or something samples up there. Although I've been a little lazy in the last few years, so I don't have some of the latest stuff up there. After a while, they start being the same. It's really just much like you. I started playing acoustic, playing around the house, playing for myself. And I eventually got to where, okay, I think I could perform with this stuff, get out and start playing some gigs. And it's like, oh, I need to be amplified. How do I do that? I put in a few pickups and I didn't like them. So I pretty quickly went through 4 or 5 different pickups, just trying to understand things. And one day I was looking at this box of pickups I had that I had tried and pulled out and thrown in a box. And I thought, well, before I get rid of these, I should just record all these. Maybe somebody'd be interested in hearing them. So I very quickly put together this idea of just playing a short couple different licks that would demonstrate different aspects of the pickup. Threw up these, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 samples on the web, and created the original version of that pickup page. And I wasn't intending on creating some huge library or anything. It was just I've got 5 or 6 pickups. This is what I've got so far. But of course, I wasn't done because I still wasn't happy with any of them. So I kept trying more pickups. The page got a little bit of attention online from people, and I actually even had companies start sending me pickups to add. And some people even a couple of people shipped me guitars, with the pickup in, and try this, record it, and send it back to us. So it grew. It took a life of its own. But it was all just me searching for a pickup that would work for me.
I mean, I just want to say, just in case Larry Fishman is watching this, I discovered the Martin guitars that had the Aura system in. I was very happy with that. That is still a great system, and I was very happy with that. But then I suddenly decided I wanted to loop and I wanted body sound. So then it takes you down a whole new path. Because if you want that, that's another thing you need in the guitar. It's a whole new ball game. And then they started putting the enhanced pickup in the guitars, didn't they? A few years ago.
One of the things about pickups is it's so individual. Like I myself have not generally found a Fishman Matrix working for me, but Tea's got one in one of his guitars. It sounds great.
Does he use the Aura system or just go straight in?
No, just a straight. You can talk to him when you do your interview, but he's just got a straight Fishman Matrix in one of his guitars. Sounds fantastic.
John Mayer, Fishman Matrix. Yeah. He's so into electric tone, and yet he has a Matrix. He's very happy with it. I do think the IR thing is interesting. I don't know why someone like John Mayer doesn't have the IRs out the front and the acoustic sound on the stage. I think that'd be good for the audience, but I don't know. I'd love to ask that question to him, actually. I don't know why he is so into electric gear, but his acoustic, he just plugs in and goes. I mean, I guess we all have different things. I remember I went to Nashville last year, and I had a rain song with the anthem, which everyone tells me sounds great. I get on stage there, and the guy says, "Oh, that sounds weird." The sound guy is like, "That sounds weird. Try my Martin that's got a Fishman Matrix." I mean, I feel like maybe if you're used to something as well, then that's just what you're used to.
I think there's an element of that. When working with sound guys, they know what they're working with, and they know how to get a good sound. Yeah. I mean, I discovered that early on. I moved to mostly using soundboard pickups, K&Ks and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times I found working with local sound guys that they were like, "This is weird. This is not the sound I'm used to. I'm used to the under saddle pickup." So you hit them with one of those, and it just they don't know what to do with it. So
I guess the under saddle is so popular, so mainstream, and I feel like I did a gig once where they dialed that in to actually sound really natural. And then if you show up, when I first tried K&K, I told everyone online, I feel bad now. I told everyone I hated it because it was just a real problem. But then once I figured out how to EQ it, now I can make those things sound pretty good. So a lot of it is, like, they call it plug and play. I just think you need some knowledge of EQ when you're dealing with body sensor pickups. But I mean, this is such a huge topic. I mean, what you had a Fishman Matrix. What did you? Can you sort of summarize your journey through those pickups and what you kind of settled on, and any kind of light bulb moments along the way for you in particular?
Well, I think one of the things I learned in trying them all early on was that there's probably that there's no perfect pickup. I'd actually try pickups and they would sound great in one guitar, and then try another guitar, and maybe it wasn't quite the right thing. So it depends on the guitar. Depends a lot on the player. I've had experience of playing with other people where somebody says, "Oh, let me try your guitar," and you swap guitars and you find it sounds totally different in somebody else's hands. So there's a question of matching the player, the guitar, the pickup, and then there's also, depending on your style, there's some real decision points to make about a pickup. For example, you mentioned percussive stuff. If you're doing percussive tapping, you need a pickup that's going to pick that up. An undersaddle probably won't pick up body percussion, whereas a soundboard or a system with a mic in it will. If you play in a rock band, you're going to have feedback issues and bleed issues. So you probably don't want a microphone or maybe a soundboard transducer, because those things pick up so much of the vibration of the guitar. You're probably going to pick up the drummer and everything else, who knows what, and you'll have feedback problems at the volume that you're at. So for those people, maybe a magnetic pickup, which doesn't sound terribly natural, but by the time you get it in a mix with a band, it can sound really good, and it won't feed back as well. So I think one of the first things I learned was just that there were a lot of options, and it partly depended on what I wanted. Your taste changed a little bit. I used a magnetic pickup for quite a while. I had a system with a mag and a K&K and a mic, so I had all three sources, and I just loved that warm, round, low end that the magnetic pickup gave me. And then one day I started hearing it as sounding electric to me, and I just sort of went, "Oh, now I don't like that anymore." So your taste sort of changes depending on what you latch onto about something. I still like the way a magnetic pickup feels. It feels nice when you're playing it. It's just something about the attack that's
it's immediate, right? It's immediate. I noticed that with like K&K, it's not quite as immediate as the undersaddle. I think you've got to be careful if you're used to an undersaddle and you try the K&K. You can immediately write it off and say, "Oh no, I don't like it." But you have to really stick with something, I think. And you're absolutely right. It depends on what you play, how you play. Like if you use a pick or if you use fingers, the style of music you play, the rooms you play in. Because a lot of people online talk about the K&K just being the ultimate solution, but they play a lot in quiet venues or coffee shops. If you play on even a fairly loud room, it can be a problem. And of course, then you can use EQ, you can use preamps. Depends on your knowledge of that. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of options. And I've noticed that some pickups, I agree, some don't work in some guitars. I tried one that sounded great in a Dreadnought, blew me away. This is the one. And I tried it in a smaller body. Because sometimes, here's the thing. People talk about your guitar but louder. But sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I want a loud, strong, full bass, punch in the face kind of sound, which isn't what the guitar sounds like at all. Right. So there's that as well.
It's also just it's an oxymoron, right? Your guitar only louder. The whole sound of the guitar is that it's small and intimate. It sounds great in a small room. Once you get that amplified really loud, that sound may not be all that good, right? You have to have it be different in order for it to sound good over a lot of volume to a large audience. Different pickups. So I've settled on a few that work for me, but I also try to be flexible. I've still got a little collection of things. I did a gig that I thought was going to be a pretty loud one here not too long ago, and I threw magnetic pickups in the guitars just to have that as an option. So sometimes you have to adjust. You could have different guitars that you use for different types of gigs. I mean, the most perfect thing is to play a small house concert totally acoustic. That's wonderful. A small enough environment that people can actually hear the guitar and hear the acoustic sound, which is what I like anyway. Again,
it's funny because I noticed some of the guys from the Acoustic Guitar Forum are doing an open mic now on streaming on Facebook. You did it right on Sunday.
I did that. I joined them last week.
Okay, here's my question. Did you plug in for that, or was it acoustic?
I did not. I noticed a number of people did. Some people were playing through their whole PA systems, playing through a Bose or something right in the room. No, in fact, I use this same, I don't know if you can see my mic here. I've got a mic in front of me. I just put the mic up in front.
Yeah. So we're back. We're back to base. I just thought it was funny that all of us are in the forums all the time talking about pickups, and then we're actually playing, which is a nice thing to actually see people playing that you're always typing to. And we're just playing that to pick up anyway. Now, I guess you plug in. I've been plugging in to do looping, and I've been using these in-ears. I never liked in-ears, but as I've been forced to use these the last 3 weeks, I'm actually getting quite used to in-ears now. I'm actually quite liking them, I have to say. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's something you have to get used to, for sure.
So Here's a question for you then, because obviously it's such a broad topic, but what are you using in your guitars right now?
I have a handful of pickups that I've settled on. I still have some K and Ks and a few. I always pair a bass pickup with a microphone these days, and that's mostly. I mean, I mostly am not playing very loud venues. I'm mostly playing quieter places, smaller places, places where or places that have a really nice sound system. That I played a large theater here recently that was big with a big sound system, but it was a great sound system in a acoustically tuned theater. So that was fine, even though the sound was not really quiet. It would work fine with a soundboard transducer and a mic. So I use a soundboard transducer and a mic in some. Still have K and Ks in some. I have trance pickups in a few. But my most recent discovery that I'm most excited about these days, and I think in 4 guitars now, is this Barbera undersaddle pickup, and it's an integrated saddle. It's not really an undersaddle in the sense that it's a little ribbon, that goes underneath your saddle. It replaces your whole saddle. So in that sense, it's a little bit like the Takamine or the Maiden systems, in that it takes over the whole saddle of your guitar. And I'm just liking the sound of it. It's a very clean.
What's the name of that?
Barbera, B-A-R-B-A-R-E, Barbera, B-A-R-B-E-R-A.
Is that the soloist? The soloist, is that right?
Yes, solo.
Yeah.
That Rich Barbera is the creator of it, and it's sort of a handmade pickup. You can even get it, sort of custom, because it replaces the saddle. It's got to be right for your saddle. He makes a couple different stock designs that'll fit most guitars, but you can also, if you need to, he'll make you a custom one that'll fit just about anything. So I've got that in a number of guitars, and I pair that with an internal microphone, and the combination is just sounding really good to me. It's a very clean. It's pretty feedback resistant. Every other string is out of phase, so it's flipped around. The Baggs LB6 does that with, I think, just one string, but he does it with every other string. And that helps with makes a cleaner sound, and it's also feedback resistant. And yet it's for me, for playing fingerstyle, it's a very nice, warm, and articulate sound. A lot of the Nashville guys have been using this for quite a while. So you see people like, I think John Knowles uses one, Richard Smith. Some of these guys have been using this pickup for quite a while.
So that's basically a custom Anthem under saddle with a mic, in a way.
Yes. The Anthem the Anthem's a terrific pickup. And what Baggs did with that was sort of a common technique that people have been doing for ages. You take something like an undersaddle or a magnetic, and those things sound good on the lows, but it's the high frequencies that sound a little artificial. That's where this quack comes from when you play them. And so what a lot of people will do is do a dual source thing, where you have 2 pickups. Maybe you have a mic inside, where the mic sounds really good on the highs, but they tend to be kind of boomy and not so good, especially an internal mic on the guitar, for the lows. So you put it into some kind of preamp that has EQ on it. You roll all the highs off of the undersaddle, you roll off the lows off the mic, and then you blend them together. What they did with the Anthem was just build that all into the electronics around the guitar. So you're hearing everything, I think it's below 250 hertz, coming from the undersaddle pickup that they've got. Everything. I'm sure you went through this with Lloyd last week. And then the microphone handles everything from 250 on up. And they just make that totally transparent to you, and you end up with one pickup where it's got the best of both worlds, the best of the highs and the best of the lows. I'm doing that manually by blending those, and I can EQ each one however I want externally.
What I like about the Anthem, there's a few things I like about it. I love the sound. I love that it seems to work in every guitar I've ever tried it in. And I love it has that crossover, because a lot of people just throw a mic on top of the pickup. I don't think I know. I mean, you're the person to ask. Is there another system that uses the crossover technique apart from the Anthem?
The first one I've encountered, maybe the only other one that I know of that exists, was a company called B-Band. They made a pickup called the XOR, which stood for crossover. So they did that technique before the Anthem. They're out of business these days, but that was a nice system. And they actually would let you choose. They had a undersaddle pickup, a soundboard pickup, and a mic, and you could mix and match them however you wanted. Their system would work with any of the 3.
I don't know why more people don't do that, because it seems to work pretty well.
I mean, you end up with the same effect if you just do EQ, although it's just much more convenient to have the crossover. But that's the idea. Instead of a crossover a crossover is really something, just an EQ circuit that cuts all the highs off of one, all the lows off the other.
Right.
So you could do that with a dual band pickup. I'm using a custom preamp from this company called Sun Audio. And one of the things I had them, they build it. They're now making a version that they'll set other people, but this was a prototype that they made specifically for me as a custom preamp. And one of the things I wanted in it was a high pass filter, which is just a knob that I just turn up and it determines a certain frequency. They just cut off everything below it. So I put that on the mic channel and I can crank it up and say, I don't want that mic to have anything under 300 or 400 hertz, and it just kills it. So it's almost exactly the same as the crossover in the overall effect.
I just want to investigate this a bit more. So with the pickup you're using, I love the idea of the pickup being the saddle, because there's nothing under the saddle and it's just one hard saddle, right? I like that idea. Now, in a Martin guitar, would you have to, because one thing I wouldn't want to do really is route the saddle out to fit that. So on the Baggs LB6 and on your pickup, do you have to route the saddle to fit that in, or will it go in as it is?
It depends. I mean, on a Martin pickup, Martin saddles are pretty thin. I think you would have to route the Martin out. I don't have one in a Martin. I've got it in, I guess, 4 guitars. 2 of them I had to make very minor adjustments to the saddle slot. I had to actually lengthen it a little bit rather than routing out the width. It was a little bit too long. The other 2 would just fit right in. And just work perfectly from the day one. Now it does have, people get kind of a little bit frightened by the idea of making changes. That's why a lot of people are afraid of undersaddle pickups. They're going to insert something in between the saddle. This is, in some sense, crazier. You're replacing the whole saddle. And as a lot of people have probably found out, I mean, you can even go and maybe you've got a bone saddle, but something's wrong with it. You go get another one made. It may sound different, because there's different densities of material and stuff. So replacing the whole saddle definitely has a potential to change the sound. The first guitar I tried it in, however, I actually thought it improved the sound. And I was much happier with the sound of the pickup. It's very hard. It's a very hard, almost harder than bone. It's almost like fossilized ivory. So I actually thought it improved the guitar, which is nice, but there's no telling. It actually could have an effect one way or the other for people.
I don't really mind stuff in the guitar. I don't want it to be too heavy, but I don't really like the idea of something soft under the saddle. And this is completely my opinion, but several guitars I've installed the Anthem in. But the thing is, though, the problem is, like you said, there's so many variables. Because if you give your guitar to someone and say, install this pickup, they could give it back to you with a neck a different angle, the saddle lower down, a shim under the pickup. They could actually change how it was, and it's very hard to be scientific about these things.
Absolutely,
and I think it's easy to get, and some of it can be psychological as well. I have to say, it's like if you tell me it's in there, then it kind of drives me crazy. But my opinion lately has been get the tool for the job. If you want to plug in, get a guitar to plug in. If you want to play without a pickup, get one without a pickup. I mean, why not have the best of both worlds? But it certainly is a journey.
I have some guitars I don't have pickups in. They're guitars that I don't see taking them on a gig. I've got enough guitars with pickups, so they're guitars that I would use for recording, playing around home. To some extent, especially with feedback, some of the more sensitive guitars that you might find aren't very good matches. If you've got a guitar that's so lightly braced that it just vibrates, get up on stage where you've got speakers and maybe, especially not with other players, and it's loud, that guitar is going to be a problem. So it's almost better off if you've got a really super cool, sensitive guitar that sounds great in the studio. That may not be a good guitar to amplify.
I agree. There's nothing wrong with having a different tool for the job. The thing about me is that I actually, when I play at home, I always tend to plug in anyway. So I don't know why I care so much, because I always plug in the guitar.
Well, sometimes I've been liking that with my current setup between the pickups and this the preamp and also the IRs, which we've mentioned a few times. I've gotten to where it sounds good enough plugged in that I actually like to do that.
Okay, so Rusty says, I've been through many models, always come back to the Baggs LB6 and mic. Then I add some EQ. I'd love to do something like a Baggs LB6 replacing the element and then their mic under there, something like that. So it's all in one, but with that pickup. But I've tried so many things over the years now. I'm kind of getting a bit I'm getting less adventurous as the years go by, shall we say. So let's talk about, I've got some, Kookie's here. Kookie from the forum, the IR creator, who I know,
Yes,
he's made IRs for you, right? So,
indeed.
okay,
Yes.
this is a great time to transition. Had loads of questions as well, which I'm going to come back to at the end. So I will get back to your questions. Apologies for that. Stick around. So I knew this would be a long one because when I start talking about pickups, I can just talk forever. Because there's not really, well, like you said earlier, there's not really an answer, right? That's the
No.
thing to remember. Don't go down the rabbit hole because there's not really a perfect solution yet.
I get a lot of mail from people saying, I got this new guitar. Here's the guitar I got. What pickup should I put in it? And I can't answer that question. I can give them some advice and tell them what to think about, but there's no just get this pickup and it'll be right.
You have to ask. Actually, I had my friend that plays metal was on here the other day, and we were talking about amps, and it's the same thing. What's the amp for the gig? So you have to ask them, where do you play? Do you have to carry it? So every piece of gear has to be suited to the player for sure.
And even if you know all those things, I'm not sure I can tell somebody, just do this and it'll work because everybody's different.
Everyone's different. And I think there is some compromise, like you said as well. You have to accept sometimes the compromise. But there's two other possibilities. What do you think of guitars that ship with a system? What do you think of things like the Maton and the Cole Clark come to mind? What do you think of that as an approach?
Well, I think there's a bunch of benefits to that. I think we did an article for Acoustic Guitar once on stage-ready guitars, and we did a whole shoot at. In fact, we went to the Freight and Salvage and shot them on stage through the big sound system and recorded them all. And every one of them sounded good. I mean, there's something to be said for the manufacturer designing guitar, figuring out what pickup should go in it. It's been installed correctly, and it's just going to work out of the box. And hopefully that pickup is designed for the guitar. The Cole Clarks and the Matons are perfect examples where they're doing things. You can't put those pickups in other guitars because they build them into the guitar, designed, and they know that they designed the guitar around the pickup, basically. And as a result, both of those pickups sound fabulous. And those guitars, generally, Takamine is another example, of course. Those guitars may or may not sound as good acoustically, but they're made to be plugged in, and they sound fantastic that way.
It's interesting. Cole Clark actually pitched, when you hear their sales pitch at NAMM, they talk about our guitars are made to be plugged in. Like they're made to be plugged in, and they don't, don't quote me on this, but they're basically, in my opinion, they're saying, don't expect them to sound good unplugged. These are for the stage. Right?
Well, I mean, an extreme example is say, Rick Turner's guitars, which, again, he's designing guitars he has straight acoustic guitars that are very nice, but he's also going after, how do I get a good acoustic sound on stage, loud, at Fleetwood Mac stadium levels. And so he's going after that and making that work. And there's really no consideration at all as to whether that guitar sounds good acoustically. But he wants it to sound like it's a good acoustic when it's played on stage to a rock band.
All right, let's move on then. So let's talk about technology and how we can improve the sound of the guitar. Let's talk about impulse responses, because I just had Lloyd on here. He's very proud of the Soundscape, which I heard at NAMM, and it was a very early version. He says they've improved it a lot, and I think you've tried it, right?
I saw definitely an even earlier version. I saw a pre-production prototype of it in maybe last October.
Oh, wow.
So several months before NAMM. And it was very impressive, but I'm sure they've made improvements because they were still kicking around ideas and trying to figure out how to address certain things. I, of course, haven't seen the final product, not quite out yet. And I didn't make it to NAMM this year, so I didn't see what they had there either.
Right. I want to say, the Aura, I keep saying this on all the interviews, the Aura system was so way ahead of its time. I feel like people didn't know what it was. They didn't understand it. They just threw around words like digital and fake. They didn't really know what it was. Back then, we didn't have things like this. Like, we can sit here and tell the viewers exactly what things are and how to think about them. Back then, it was a few YouTube videos, if you were lucky, or just a store where you'd be like, what's this pedal do? And they didn't call it impulse responses. Now we have the Helix, the Kemper. People now musicians are very familiar with the word IR. So an impulse response. Now, we've got a lot of people watching that don't play guitar. So I'm going to give you the job of the... What's your elevator pitch for explaining what an impulse response or IR is?
Well, let's see. Boy, that's a tough one.
I put I put him on the spot, guys. Sorry.
I should have a definition handy. An impulse response is just a way of capturing the sonic signature of anything, a space or an instrument. It's actually a pretty simple concept. People have been using impulse responses to model reverbs in rooms for ages. You go into a room, you go into the Sistine Chapel, and you pop a balloon, pop or clap, and you record that from a distance, and you end up getting what the room adds to that simple sound. Once you record that, there's a digital process that you can do that will impart that sound to anything. So I could go into the Sistine Chapel, clap, capture that recording, go back and plug it through some special software that will what's called a deconvolver. It gets all very technical. Cookie on here could explain it much better than me. But basically, you can then play your guitar through that, and it sounds like you're playing your guitar in the Sistine Chapel. So it's a little bit of magic, it's a little bit of math, and a little bit of digital signal processing magic. And so it's been used for reverb for ages. But at some point, people said, we could do more than reverb with this. We can capture anything. The first example I came across, I don't know if it was really the first one, was this a thing called Mama Bear that Rick Turner made.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that was before the Aura. So he came out with the Mama Bear. It had 16 different slots, and he had captured the sound of 16 guitars. You could plug your pickup in and say, I'd like it to sound like a Martin D18, and turn the dial, and that's the kind of the sound you would get. And that thing worked pretty well, but it never quite took off commercially. It was probably too early. The electric guys have really jumped on this. You've got things like the Kemper, where you can... you got your Marshall stack and your boogie and whatnot here at home. You can use that thing to capture the sound of it, and then you just take that on stage, and instead of lugging a whole Marshall full stack, you just got this little box with the sound captured. I think the acoustic side is harder. The acoustic is more complex because we're not capturing us. Part of the problem is the pickup. One issue with pickups, I think, is you're usually picking up one or two spots on the guitar, whereas when we play acoustically, everything's vibrating. Even the headstock's vibrating. The strings, the neck, everything is vibrating and contributing in some small way. Then you put a pickup in one spot, and now you're digitally trying to recreate stuff, and sometimes the information just isn't there. But we're making tremendous progress. The Aura, I've heard the Aura sound really good. The Tone Dexter is the next one out that has come up, and I use that. It sounds great. What I heard from the Bag Soundscape sounded terrific. So we're entering a new era.
I've completely forgot about the guitar. So I'm just trying to think. Let's just while you're with me, then just help me sum this up. We've got the Aura, the Mama Bear, the Yamaha system.
Yep.
Right. Tone Dexter, Soundscape. There's a new one just been announced by. Someone help me out here. Nuix.
Oh, okay.
They have a way we can make your own impulse responses.
Okay.
So this is the question I was trying to find out at NAMM. Who made the first one? Who did this first? Do you know? The very first person to do impulse responses for acoustic guitar?
I suspect it was Mama Bear. It's the first one I know of. There could have been some, experiments. Rick Turner would be another great person for you to interview. He's got a history of acoustic guitar and electric guitar and everything else. So he would probably know if they were inspired by something else or not. But that's the first case I know of anybody doing it for acoustic. Okay. The big shift that happened, so Mama Bear was pre-canned. They sampled a bunch of guitars. In fact, Lawrence Juber went and recorded the guitar parts for them that they used for the samples. Aura does them at the Fishman factory, and at least at one point they had a program where you could send your guitar into them and they'd make images. So the big breakthrough with Tone Dexter was you could do it yourself. And now the Bag system, you're going to be able to do it yourself, and now you've got another case. And of course, and on the electric side, the same thing. Line 6 has been doing this kind of thing for a long time, but canned. And then along comes Helix and Kemper and others that'll let you load your own IRs and capture your own IRs.
But let's talk about this because we had this conversation about electric guitar on Monday. So I love the Helix and the Kemper are great for recording. When I play live in the room, I want the amp in the room. It seems to be more direct, like we were saying, but The difference between soundboard pickups and undersaddle and magnetic. The amp in the room seems to be more direct than hearing it through the PA, because the PA is basically a mic in front of a cab. You have to remember that. It's a different thing. So how does that translate to acoustic? So we can create the sound of a microphone essentially. Some people try this and don't like it. And I think it's because you lose. And again, the first thing they say, and Kooky should join in here, the first thing they say is, it sounds digital. I hate that word, digital.
Yeah, me too.
So tell me the real reason. Like, oh, I can feel the latency. No, I don't think you can. I think what you're feeling is the disconnection, because again, you're hearing the mic in front of the guitar, and even when you play a guitar, you don't have your ear next to the sound hole where the mic would be. So all these things are very different. I would like to see a way to blend it, like on the Anthem, where you can blend the mic in. I'd like to make it more focused, more immediate. That's what I'm hoping for. I think the Soundscape is going to do that.
Well, you can do that. I mean, you can do that with Tone Dexter. They have a blend control. You can also do it offline. For example, I've played around even with the IRs that Cookie has made for me. You can blend IRs just like you mix audio. So I could take one of his, and if I think it's too ambient, I could blend it with a straight through signal and create a 50-50 mix. And now I have a new IR that's a blend, and I can put that into my pedal and go from there. I think there's a bunch of things going on there. I mean, one of the problems is that once you're playing out live, you've got to deal with the live room. And also everything changes so much. The audience changes things. I mean, I remember way back when I was playing in bands. One day, I got a whole bunch of new gear, and I went into the club that we were playing, had our stuff set up, and I spent all afternoon dialing in this great sound. And I had echo, and I had the right level of distortion and EQ, and I was like, tonight I'm just going to knock people out with the guitar sound I got. First song, oh my God, it was terrible. I couldn't be heard. I didn't cut through the band. My whole sound just washed out, and it was gone. So I quickly learned that the difference between me playing alone, even in the same room, playing alone on stage and getting a good sound versus playing with a band with a crowd there, totally different thing. And I turned all that junk off, just a direct sound, and that was better.
I've experienced that too, definitely. And recorded. That's been my experience so far. Again, with the Kemper and the Tone Dexter, when I record it, it sounds like a microphone. It's so believable. Okay, it doesn't sound exactly the same as a microphone, but it's so believable and so natural sounding. But again, I don't always want that sound on stage. I think I want to see a way for them to make them sound more tuned for the stage, or at least the way I play.
The main thing I look for, and the main thing that the IRs I found do for me, is just get rid of that. You can't put your finger on it. Some people call it quack. When I play fingerstyle, I usually am not overdriving the pickup, so I don't get what a lot of people experience as quack if they're hard strummers. But there is this sort of plasticky sound that's there that you can't describe. You can't find it. I can't EQ it out, but there's always a certain sound that's gone. A good example is with in-ears. Every time I've tried using in-ears directly with my acoustic guitars, I just can't stand the sound because I'm hearing that pickup sound really right in my ears. As soon as I add in the IRs, as soon as I go through Tone Dexter, that sound is gone. And I can listen through in-ears and say, oh, actually, I actually enjoy this sound. It may not be exactly like the mic, but it gets it gets rid of that whatever that objectionable sound is to a pickup that I'm not liking. And it may not sound exactly like a mic, and it doesn't have to be a real extreme ambient sound, just enough to take that edge away from.
That's exactly what I want. And every time someone says the word quack, I see Larry Frischman in my mind at NAMM when I said quack to him, and he goes, I don't like that expression, quack. Every time.
Well, it's a very strange word because people are trying to put a word on this undefinable pickup sound that we hear, but it isn't a very descriptive word.
But it was in James's marketing though for Tone Dexter. Got quack? Question mark. I love that. That was funny. Oh dear, I love James. I can't wait to have James on the show. Hopefully next week. So yeah, that's you've got it exactly. I agree with you 100%. When I play a Fishman Matrix, it actually sounds really good. There's just something in the high end we're calling quack that if that wasn't there, if that was gone, I'd be very happy. Direct, punchy, clear, no feedback. Okay, the body sound is another topic, but That's exactly it. So that's why when Soundscape was mentioned that you could dial it in and kind of change it, I almost want to dial it in. I almost want to take all the room sound out and only have it on the high end, or do a crossover or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but what you mentioned is exactly the experience that I've had. I just want to tame the high end. I don't want to make the whole thing sound, distant like an I. I don't.
That's the kind of that's the kind of Cookie would have great discussion for you about that, because they've been playing around with that kind of stuff. How do they EQ just the low end, the high end? There are tools that help. I've been using. My setup gets a little convoluted, but I've been using a 2 Notes Engineering Cab M IR loader, and I actually capture the IRs from Tone Dexter and load it into that. And they've got software that runs on the desktop that I can load multiple IRs into. I can EQ them. I can bypass parts. So I could take an IR, I could knock off all the low end from that. I could take a straight wire and knock off all the highs, blend that, have basically a crossover thing. I haven't gotten that crazy with it, but I could do all that with their software. And so if you want to spend the time, you could spend all your time messing with this instead of playing. Sometimes I think the best improvement of tone would just be if I practiced a little bit more.
I totally agree with that. We said that the other day. A friend of mine once said, he said, I've got 30 guitars and I should just sell all the ones I don't want and get a teacher instead, Like actually he said a personal trainer, but same thing. We the way to get better, if you play really well through a terrible pickup, it's better than playing really badly through a great pickup or through a microphone.
Absolutely.
So yep, I'm trying to pass, with all these chats and things, I want to pass my knowledge on. I don't want to sound condescending or like I'm preaching, but definitely don't go down the rabbit. It's not, and it's hard to say this because no one ever will listen. You have to go on the journey. Someone said to me, you have to go on the journey to know what you want sometimes. But again, to sum all this up, there is no real perfect scenario. I guess what I'm hinting at with the technology is maybe we'll get there. Maybe they'll get us there. I just don't feel like they're doing it in a way that suits my playing yet. But I'm happy to try those new pedals because the Soundscape and the new X1 just maybe... And, Tone Dexter are tweaking the firmware all the time. Their latest firmware I liked much more than the original one. I also found the mic distance and all that stuff. But again, who wants to be tweaking and trying things when you can be playing music? Which is why some people just end up with a Cole Clark and a Martin and play them both for different reasons. So, yeah.
It could be a really long journey. I mean, I'm not sure exactly when I first put up my pickup samples, but it's been quite a while, maybe 15, maybe even 20 years ago. I don't know. And so that, in a sense, documents all the pickups that I've tried. And it's really only been in the last year or two that between the pickups that I found and my signal chain, that I'm like, no, this works for me. This I like the way it sounds. And I've also got this stereo setup that I'm definitely appreciating, which is a little different. Nobody, I don't know too many people trying that, but it also helps to give me more of an acoustic sound. But it's been a long journey, and who knows? Maybe tomorrow I'll suddenly decide it's not good anymore and start looking again.
I hope not for your bank's sake. The problem is it's great to test them, but you've got to put it in the guitar. You might have to drill a hole. Might put some glue in there. All this kind of stuff. That's the thing with the K&K. You've got the glue in there. You have to sand the glue off, and that's why people don't like to try it. But how important is the amp? Why some people say to me, should I get a PA or an acoustic amp? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the whole signal chain matters, and I think that's a part that is neglected. I've often told people I think it's hard to know if your memory is accurate, but I think the best amplified acoustic guitar sound I ever heard was a young lady, don't remember her name, playing through a Fishman Rare Earth through the magnetic pickup. But she was playing in one of these mega churches with probably $1 million sound system up there. It sounded incredible. It was a great sound system, probably sound people that knew what they were doing. She was the opening act for Phil Keaggy in a concert, and it was just stunning how good that sounded. And I know this pickup sounds like a magnetic pickup when I play through it, and it's a fine magnetic pickup, pretty good actually, but it didn't sound like this. So I think if you have a really great sound system, that covers up a lot. And also a good sound man that knows how to EQ it, how to make it sound good. Problem is, we mostly don't play gigs in rooms like that, and we can't carry around a million or $100,000 sound system with us. More often, you show up at the club and who knows what's there, and or you've got an amp, you know. And I think the better the sound system is, the better any pickup will sound. But amps these days, amps are pretty good. You know, the amplifiers. I used to think that amps were a weak point, but I have a couple AERs. I use those. Those are great amps. They sound really nice. But I've played through a lot of relatively inexpensive amps. The Boss acoustic player amp, I think.
Acoustic singer.
Nice. Yeah. The Fishman, the loud boxes sound great. So these days, and those things are not terribly expensive. So you can get and they're small, they're light, they're easy to carry. You can get an amp these days that'll do a pretty credible job. You start getting into issues of whether it'll project or not. You know, a combo amp on the floor, in the wrong setup, maybe not up on a stage, may not project through the room. Whereas PA speakers project through the back. And then you get into the whole line array stuff like the Bose system. And those, I had a Bose for a long time. I never enjoyed playing through it. It didn't sound good to me because I had it close and I'm hearing one of those tinny speakers right by my ears. But out in the room, it sounded great.
We had this exact same conversation last week. We were talking about the rig I actually use for my shows. And I said I used a QSC K8.2. And I think it was Gary Roberts said he uses the Bose. And I said the same thing. When I played it with the trio gig with it behind me, I had to crank it so much that I could hear that it was starting to feedback and it's kind of harsh. So I like to have the speaker kind of beside me and up a bit. But the reason I got into this is, actually, I want to say the Fishman amps and the Fender amps do sound really good with acoustic guitar. I've played some basic undersaddles through them and they sound really sweet and nice. So there's something about the amp can really help the pickup. But I think now people that want to start doing gigs, they ask me, you know, here's a question. They say, should I get a PA system or an acoustic amp? I think some people are using acoustic amps for voice and guitar at gigs. And I'm not sure personally that's the best use. I think maybe if you get an amp, it should be for the guitar because nothing really beats a PA for the power and the headroom.
Yep. And also voices. I mean, a good acoustic amp is probably usually geared towards the guitar and maybe EQ'd a little bit for the guitar, so they're not going to be as good for voice. Plus, it's just a projection issue and feedback. You want that amp behind you. The best combination is probably to have the amp as a stage monitor and then play out in the room. And for that, you can use a really small amp, like for example, the little AER Alphas. I don't know, they only weigh 5 pounds or something. They're really little, but they're a good sounding amp. They don't get very loud, but you can have it on stage. It's enough for you to hear. Take a feed out of the back, send it up to a PA, and there you've got a great sounding setup.
Did you know that Udo has left AER? Have you tried his new amp, Udo?
I have not. What is it?
What's it called? He was at NAMM. I think he's left the company and he's making his own amp now. And now Tommy Emmanuel has the new one. It's a bit cheaper. It's a bit more headroom. It's a bit bigger. It's good. I can't think what the name of it is. But if you look up Udo amps, then he's got a whole new line. And
I haven't seen those.
I've got the Hughes and Kettner to review for them, and I think one of the guys from AER may design that one as well. There's a lot of crossover there with designers, but I think they can be great, and I think that's a whole new subject. They can be good ones, and you know they all have different. I just had the Elite ones as well with all the digital mixer and stuff.
Nice. Yep.
So
they're very nice.
And then some people want batteries, some people want. The chat is interesting. Raphael said what I was just thinking. Some people put the amps on poles. Tommy Emmanuel turns the amp against the wall. Did you know that? That just came to my head. When Tommy plays, he turns the AER to face the wall, so the sound hits the wall and bounces back into the room.
Yeah, so he's basically using it as a DI box.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You should try it.
If it works for Tommy, it'll probably as long as you play like Tommy, you'll be in good shape.
Well, there you go. That's exactly it, right? Okay, let's go to the questions because I did miss some. I want to make sure I ask everyone's questions that we got. Okay, Gary said, I'll put it on the screen for the viewers. Doug, do you find that some of your favorite pickups one night sound better for fingerstyle, but not be the best choice for playing with a pick?
Sure, I think that's true. I have the luxury that I almost exclusively play fingerstyle these days. I haven't touched a pick in a long time, other than just for demoing and messing around. But with a pick, I think you need a pickup that has more headroom. When you're playing fingerstyle, a lot of pickups are much more forgiving of fingerstyle. You're playing fairly quietly, you won't overdrive them. As soon as you pick up a pick, and especially if you're strumming hard, you're likely to overdrive the pickup. They're going to sound harsher, perhaps. There are some pickups, for example, the guitar wavelength is a good example. That's the exact same pickup as in the Anthem or just the Baggs basic element system. Same undersaddle. In fact, Baggs makes those, sells them the guitar as the pickup. But the guitar adds an 18-volt preamp, so it has more headroom. And so you can strum harder on that pickup without overdriving it and without getting as much quack because there's just more headroom. Also, passive pickups. I didn't mention this, but like that Barbera pickup that we were talking about a while back, it's passive. I've got no electronics in the guitar. So with that, I've got no 9-volt battery limitations on how hard I drive it. I can output that and plug it into a Grace Felix. It's got incredible headroom, and that'll also help if I'm strumming. But yeah, in general, I think it's two different things, and you need two different pickups. Or you at least might make different pickup choices depending on your playing style.
Just so no one sends me a message after this. I tried the D-Tar, but I didn't personally feel that extra. I didn't feel the 18 volts really did much.
You didn't notice it? Yeah.
Not really, and it doesn't have the crossover, does it? That the Anthem has. So
no. Although you can't add a microphone to it, and you can run it with split output, so you could do the crossover stuff with EQ yourself if you wanted to.
Oh, that reminds me, the guy from Grateful Dead, Bob Weir, he made that pedal, which is apparently he does that live, and he made that pedal the real deal. But I don't think they sold very many of them because they went on sale on Sweetwater. And
yes.
I think the reason is because you have to plug both of them in, know what you're doing. I think that, again, a product that people don't understand, or a solution that people don't really understand, and that's why a lot of people just want to plug in and play. I guess they don't want to deal with that stuff, right?
I tried that preamp. I tried that. I ordered it, so probably one of those on sale at Sweetwater is one I tried and returned. It was very interesting, but it's kind of idiosyncratic. I think it's tuned to Bob's particular pickup setup, and it's not all that likely that you'll just plug an arbitrary pickup into it and be able to take advantage of it the way Bob does.
Alex,
a little bit like my signal chain. It's tuned to my pickups.
Yeah, I was thinking, that would be like my custom Anthem, but I didn't have a guitar at the time with the two pickups to test it with anyway. So that's the other problem they had. You need customers that have the setup to use it with.
You have to have the exact setup. It doesn't provide power for a mic, so you have to have a pickup system that has a mic that's powered and has stereo outs that can split into that thing.
So I'm glad I'm glad when companies try these things, but obviously you need to have a market to sell them to as well. Alex said, Doug, here's a good one. Doug and Aaron, have either of you tried the Trans Acoustic from Yamaha or the Tonewood amp? The whole guitar plus effects all in one idea. So when you have the effects coming out of the guitar, have you ever reviewed those?
I have not reviewed them. I have seen one. A friend had one installed in a guitar. I played around with that. It was interesting. The reverb, and there's some great demos. Mike Dawes has some terrific demos using it on YouTube. I thought the reverb was kind of interesting. I didn't care for some of the other stuff. I don't need distortion or chorus or some of those other things that are on the Tonewood amp. But the reverb sounded nice. The guitar I tried was a Yamaha, I think. It was sort of a low-end Yamaha. And it was not much of a guitar by itself, but you turned the Tonewood amp on and all of a sudden it had more reverberation, and it sounded pretty nice. I don't think I would have any particular use for that myself, but it is an intriguing idea, and some of the demos sound great. I've not tried the Yamaha system.
The Yamaha one is basically the same thing, but without all those extra effects. I think it's just reverb and chorus. I found that if you play fingerstyle, it's more interesting than strumming, because when you're strumming all the time, you're not really going to hear the reverb until you stop. But with the fingerstyle, it can sound really nice. And I agree with you. Whenever you play a pickup lightly with fingerstyle, they all sound pretty good. It's when you start doing this, that when you start strumming hard is when you hear that quack.
Something like a tone wood's intriguing if you were doing playing acoustically. If I was playing a small house concert in a small setting and no mic, no amplification, but I wanted a little bit of reverb, that would be a pretty nice option just to sort of get a little bigger sound, a little more produced, a little more like a recording sound.
Just bear in mind, if you're going to buy one, also it's going to add some weight while it's attached.
Yes.
Just bear that in mind. That's not like guitar, but that Yamaha's good, and Yamaha guitars are so good for the money, and that's a great thing to have to play on the couch. Have you tried their latest system, which I briefly reviewed? I'm quite impressed with it. The what's the one they just released in their red label guitars? The Atmosphere. Have you tried that?
Oh, no, I've heard of it. I might have seen your demo, actually, but I have not tried it.
I'd like to know what you think of that. It's pretty cool. So again, they've gone back to analog stuff, and then and other companies that, well, it's all this back and forth all the time I'm seeing as well. Okay, what do you think of Ovation guitars? I've never played one. Have you played an Ovation?
Long ago, I played one. I think I owned an inexpensive one. I had an aunt who had a very nice one, and a Adamus, however you pronounce that. So I played that a lot early on. I always had trouble with them sliding off my lap because of the rounded back. But those are terrific, I think, amplified guitars. That's another example of a guitar that's kind of designed not to feed back. And so early on when they came out, you saw a lot of people using them live on stage because they amplified well. Acoustically, they've got a very distinctive sound, a little on the thin side. So for my style, I probably wouldn't use one of those, but they're fun. They look great. And I've definitely used them in the past a few times.
They're carbon fiber, right? Are they partly carbon fiber?
Yes.
On the back?
Yeah,
the back.
Or some kind of synthetic. Yeah, some kind of synthetic back.
Yeah. And I know you
I don't know if carbon fiber was around back then.
I know you own a Rain Song, right? You have a Rain Song?
I have a Rain Song, yeah.
And what pickup do you have in that?
That's one that's interesting. It came with the Anthem Pro system. And I did a crazy experiment. Even though the Anthem sounded pretty good, I wanted to see what would happen if I replaced the element with the Barbera Soloist. And then I also replaced the True Mic with the little Audix mics that I use. And I've got the two of those together. So I basically tried to upgrade my Anthem. And I think it sounds good. I'm happy with it. It's amplified. Unamplified, the Rain Song sounds quite good. It's just a different sound.
Yeah.
You got to sort of accept that it's not wood.
Yes, exactly. People say, it doesn't sound like wood. Well, it's not wood, so why would it sound like wood?
But it's actually a nice warm sound and very nice. I've been using that for like vacation traveling and stuff because I can take it anywhere. I was just in Australia, New Zealand for a while. Didn't have to worry about any temperature variation. I've had it in Hawaii and not worried about the 99% humidity.
Have you seen I got the Vintage behind me. Have you seen those?
No.
The Vintage is there's a wooden piece fused to the top.
Okay.
So it looks like a regular.
Veneer, yeah.
Well, they say it's a single process. So the wood, the piece of laminate wood is fused to the top during production. So it's kind of like one piece, but yeah, basically. So that's
no, I haven't tried that. Does it sound any different?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think again, it's more psychological because you look down and it looks like a wooden guitar. But I like the sound of the Rain Songs anyway. Again, I wouldn't compare them. They're just it's like. Why would you compare them? They're different. The Rain Songs sound great. They sound big and full. They amplify really well. You get great percussion sounds on those things. They sound like a cajon when you drum on them.
It's just a different instrument.
But I have to ask you about your pickup upgrade, and that's got me. Not that I'm going to do it to this one. Don't worry, Dave at Rain Song. But did you keep the preamp in the guitar, or did you take that out?
Yes. So, no. I'm using the preamp.
So you can use the Anthem preamp with a different undersaddle and mic, and it works.
Actually, I probably misspoke a little bit. It definitely worked with the different undersaddle. I'm still using the True Mic. It's still there. I replaced the in-pin jack, and I added my own mic to the stereo lug ring a bit. So I actually have three sources now. I have the Soloist as the undersaddle, the True Mic, the Baggs True Mic, that I can blend in with the crossover. Plus, I have my own microphone that I can have on a different channel and get the stereo effect that I'm going for on my.
Did you have to route the saddle slot?
No. Yes, slightly. Yes, that's one guitar where I had to just slightly lengthen it. It needed it needed a 32nd of an inch more for the
Okay.
soloist.
I'd like to,
And I did that myself. I probably shouldn't have. I should have taken it to the shop, but
I'd like to hear
I,
that. I'd like to hear
I
that.
didn't mess it up too badly.
You see, the scientist in me is now thinking about this. Oh, I get that. It's a
Well, that's the
dangerous.
problem. This is a slippery slope. You start playing around and you go, oh, what if I glued this into this and
Yeah,
swap
yeah.
this out with this? And it's kind of mad scientist mode. And as long as you are willing to take risks and willing to say, well, that was a bad idea, it can be fun.
I've
And I
done.
tried to do it in a way that, I mean, the nice thing about the Anthem Pro system, it all just plugs in.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was unplug the pickup. If it didn't work, plug it back in.
I really like the Anthem. I think it works really well on that guitar. So I'm not, again, that guitar is my stage, my travel around guitar. And actually, we did a blind test on one of my live streams where I played that against some Martins, and it came out of 4 guitars, it came second. Like, so, I mean, I know you're hearing it over YouTube over a microphone, but that's good. That's a good enough test for me. I think it's a great system. I think it works really well in that guitar, and
it's really popular.
I got the preamp, so why would I take it? No, it sounds great, but I'm just thinking now. It's just when you say that stuff, I can't help but start thinking, "Dane's so dangerous."
The Anthem's a really nice sounding system right off the bat.
It is. It's one of my favorite sounds as an all-in-one, definitely. Barbera are actually in New York. I didn't realize that. That's interesting to know.
You could visit them.
Yes, I could. All right. I could take them my guitar. Here, give me a Doug Young special. They'll say, get out of here. I'm not touching your guitar. Yeah, Lloyd Bagg said to me, he's had guitars brought to him and he said, I'm not going to put a pickup in it. Keep the guitar as it is. It's worth bearing that in mind. I did do a crazy experiment one time that I don't want to talk about on camera, but I would tell you off camera. But
Okay.
I really regretted doing it, and I just shouldn't have done it. So there we go. But it was fun. That's actually a good story, and the experience was a fun experience. Actually, I worked with a guy, but it was financially a disaster. So I'll just say that. Jason, how you doing, buddy? What are some amplifiers specifically made for acoustic guitars? Well, like we said, the AER, the Hughes and Kettner, the Elite Acoustics. Do Yamaha make them? Boss make them. Fender make them. There's so many. I've got a few reviews on my channel, and I'm sure
There's the Bose. Some people,
Bose,
aside from the Poles, Bose, there's the S1 that a lot of people are using.
Yeah, there's many. There's the JBL Eon. Well, that's more of a mobile PA, but it kind of works well for acoustic. Yeah, there's many, Jason. Let me know if you need help, Jason. Just let me know, because I've played a lot of them. Rusty says, like Gary, my priority is something that sounds musical and responds dynamically. Of course, the more it sounds an acoustic, the better. Yeah, I think the Anthem is a good choice for you there as well.
Sure.
I wonder how the soundscape will improve the Anthem. I also wonder how it will work with the mic. What's it called?
The True mic?
What's the one that's just the mic?
Oh, the Lyric.
The Lyric, yeah. I wonder if it'll take the feedback stuff away from that. I wonder how it'll work with the K&K. I can't wait. Have you received have you got your hands on the actual release one yet? Okay, good, because I want to.
No, I don't think they've released it. I haven't seen it. And I think they're delayed. Maybe I don't know what Lloyd told you, but I think they're delayed because of the current situation.
Yeah.
I did. I tried it with both an Anthem, and I also tried it with my Barbera. So I tried it with a non-bags pickup, and it worked well.
Okay, yeah, I can't wait to try that out. Rusty said, I've been through many models, always come back to the LB6 and the mic. Raphael said, don't take this the wrong way, but my 1-year-old daughter fell asleep. Any thoughts? Hey, I'm not surprised, and I think you should be thanking us. We did you a favor there, right? We put your kid to sleep, and you're entertaining you. I think it's a wonderful thing.
It'll put anybody to sleep.
I have to say, not many people. I don't want to say not many people would find this interesting, but I know the people here do, like Kooky and me and you. This is a passion of ours, and I'm not ashamed of that. Okay.
It's all about just trying to get a good sound, and it is interesting because I really don't want to deal with it. But you have to.
Yeah, me too. I don't. If the perfect thing was there, the perfect thing was there. But then it's silly to think like that, because nothing in life is perfect. It's all a compromise. It's like my Strat. I've got SSS. I love SSS. I keep thinking I want HSS. I buy an HSS. I want SSS. I want. you get a split coil, but never sounds quite the same.
Well,
And, you know,
it's crazier. I think it's even more so. The acoustic world, we're all crazy about pickups, but the electric world's like that too, right? I mean, I've got to try this pickup in the treble position. I need more windings on this pickup. It's a whole area.
but I feel like it's crazy because the acoustic guitar is so simple. Like the electric guitar, you have different amps, different speakers, different effects, different sounds, different
Yep.
tones. You know, clean, crunch, heavy. With the acoustic guitar, it seems so simple to make that louder, and yet it's one of the hardest things to do. So that's why I'm fascinated by this topic. You know?
I think somebody might this might be my friend Eric Sky who said with electric guitar pickups is where the fun starts, and with acoustics it's where it ends.
Oh, Patsy Smith, thank you very much. Kooky said, I think the Bob Weir Real Deal does not have phantom power. I think it does have phantom power, but not 18 volt. I think it's 9 volt. I think
What's that?
the Real Deal pedal, Kooky said it does not have
It
phantom.
provides phantom through it for an XLR, I believe, but not the 9 volt.
Right,
If I'm remembering right.
right. Hi, David. May Creative, how you doing? Atmosphere, yes, yeah. He just got the Yamaha with the Atmosphere pickup, and he really likes it. He's also, I think, he's trying James's pickup as well, the Ultratonic, which is interesting.
That's quite intriguing as well. I have not tried that.
I love all respect to James, because for a small company to make, to go into business and build these things, and they're really pushing the barriers. I mean, you got to give them credit for the Tone Dexter, what they did with that, with just like 2 or 3 people. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Really is.
Absolutely.
And Kooky as well. I mean, he's always working on this stuff, and for him, it's more of a hobby, a side project, right? But he knows a lot about this stuff. Okay, we keep going. Yeah, May Creative builds guitars. I built an Ovation once, made to be amplified. I rebuilt an Ovation once, made to be amplified. Yeah, I agree. David says, does Doug still use mid-side processing? I don't know what that is.
Yes. So I mentioned this a couple times that I have a stereo setup. So what I've got this custom preamp. I was actually doing it long before the custom preamp, but this goes down probably a whole rabbit hole. We'll put 5 or 6 other people asleep if we spend much time on it. But I use the main pickup and a microphone, and I feed it through a mid-side decoder. And this is something that's done in recording. You can take a microphone and have one mic aim forward. It's called the mid mic. You have another mic aim sideways, and you feed it to this decoder, and you get stereo. So what I do with the pickup is I end up feeding the bass pickup, the Barbera, the K&K, whatever I'm using, as the mid. I feed the mic in as the side. And what it does is it produces a stereo signal that it has both the mic and the pickup on each side, but it sounds like stereo. And it's a pretty cool effect. It's quite dramatic if you listen to it, over studio monitors or in headphones. Depending on the room and the sound system, it may or may not be nearly as noticeable, but it kind of opens up the sound. It just sounds bigger, and I'm really happy with that effect. So I've got a Sun. I've done it before. I had a hardware mid-side decoder that I used to use on the output of my preamps, but I finally had the Sun Audio guys make me this custom preamp that has the effect built in. And
cool.
And so now it's easier and requires less gear than it used to.
I have to say, like that's already interesting to me, but I think for most people, these new pedals, the Soundscape and the Tone Dexter, I think they're going to be, because it's so simple, it's all in one.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I can't wait to see what happens with those this year. I really think this year is the year of IR. Everyone's kind of doing that now. Of course, there's other companies as well. There's X5. A lot of companies have pedals with IRs built into them, but it's nice when they're custom. Gary Roberts says, I see a lot of cutaway guitars. What are your thoughts about the tone of a cutaway versus a non-cutaway? Does it affect the tone, in your opinion?
I've never been able to do an experiment where I had a guitar that I thought it sounded exactly the same and made it be a cutaway to compare. I have not particularly noticed. I think being an electric guy all along, to me, cutaways look right. I just, guitars that look more like a Les Paul look right to me. So I've just always been attracted to the look. And I also like to be able to, play up high if I need to.
Yeah.
I've never felt like I was losing any tone. I have a couple non-cutaway guitars. Um, my approach is I pick up a guitar, and if it sounds good, I'm happy, and if it doesn't, I'm not.
I agree. I think that's a great thing to say to people, right? Like if you need a cutaway, get a cutaway. If you don't ever play up there, don't get a cutaway. If you need a pickup, get an Anthem or something. If you don't ever plug in, then don't get a pickup. If you plug in once a year, get a K&K and a Tone Dexter. You know, get what you need, and then if
Just
you yeah, don't think about it. And if you end up playing, if you join a band that plays out every night, then get yourself a Maton or something. You know, just get the tool for the job. I think that's a great thing to take away from today. I totally agree with that. I don't think a colorway really affects the guitar that much, personally.
And most people say that there's not a lot of vibration or sound up in that area, but everything affects everything. So you never know.
So Vic said, what do you think about acoustic guitar pedals? I'll give you my opinion first of all. He says the Align series, the Aura, the Bags Venue, the Body Res. So I think personally the Body Res is an older kind of technology. I think IRs are much more advanced. I think some preamp pedals don't do that. I hate to say it, but some pedals don't do that much. I think a really good EQ is important. And I think that these IR pedals, it's a bit like I tried the expensive preamp you just mentioned that you have, the one that's like $1,000.
Yeah, the Felix.
Yeah, I tried it, and for me, because I'm just plugging in the guitar, it didn't do anything. It didn't make a big enough change for the price. Whereas a Tone Dexter completely changes the tone of the guitar. So you really got, again, get the tool for the job. If you need that for your rig, that's great. It's worth the money. But if you don't, then don't get it. So, yeah, I mean,
I think it depends a lot on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
There's so much discussion on the web about the magic of different preamps, and that's not been my experience. A good preamp, like Grace Felix, is basically they've taken their studio preamp and put it in a pedal. And what that preamp is supposed to do is not add any color, any sound of its own. It's supposed to pass the sound that comes in through to the next stage louder without changing it in any way. So if you plug it in and think it's going to do something magical to your sound, you're going to be disappointed because its whole task is to not change your sound. And the better the preamp is, the less it'll change your sound. Whereas something like Tone Dexter is actually an effect. It's setting out deliberately to change your sound. So if that's what you want. But, the nice thing about something like the Felix, very high headroom, all analog, put your sound through absolutely clean, built like a tank, built for the road. So it's hard to beat that. But on the other hand, if you're looking for some sort of special magic sauce, other than the fact that great EQ built in, it's probably not gonna be there.
You're paying for the quality, aren't you? The build quality and everything, of course,
Yep.
as well. So basically this has gone exactly how I thought it would. I wanted to talk about you more, but as soon as we start talking about pickups, we've just gone round and round that.
Go down a rabbit hole.
I think we're going to start wrapping up, but thank you to everyone that joined us. Thank you for your questions and comments. I think we'll leave that discussion there, and I'd love to revisit this with you in maybe a year's time to see if the IR thing is starting to creep its way into our workflow, and if the world is embracing that. I'd love to get viewers' comments on that as well as they start to try more and more of those pedals and experience the whole IR thing. I think that is the next step for sure, if it isn't already there, right? Now, before I end though, I do have to ask you, I hope you don't mind, I just want to know about some of those guitars. What kind of guitars do you play? What are they behind you there?
I just pulled a bunch around here to look good. I have a number of different guitars. I have a few guitars that people are familiar with, not here at the moment, but I have a Taylor, I have a Martin. I've had a number of name brands, but mostly I play guitars built by individual luthiers. And so most of these people may not be familiar with. This is a guitar built by a builder down in Santa Cruz, Ed Claxton. It's his Malabar model. It's a kind of a small body guitar. It is, I believe this is a German spruce or European spruce and a Brazilian rosewood back and sides with the cutaway. It's also a 13 fret model, which is kind of interesting because the body joint's here at the 13th fret. So it's kind of got the blend of, 12 fret guitars have a little bit of a woodier, warmer sound, and this is sort of a blend of that. I've got another really interesting guitar, speaking of custom things, this little guy. This is built by a luthier in Danville, California, Tony Yamamoto. And this is a 12-string guitar, but it's only a 20-inch scale, and this would be the 5th fret on a normal guitar.
Wow, that's amazing.
So very, very high and chimey. Probably doesn't sound too good over Skype here, but so that's an example of a totally custom guitar. Tony and I started talking about what could he build that would be different, and well, how about a little baby 12-string that sounds high and that I would tune higher than normal. And he designed the whole thing from scratch, and so that's kind of an example of what you can get with a custom build. You can actually tell somebody to build an instrument that doesn't exist out there. What else is interesting here? This is one of my older guitars. This is a Kevin Ryan Mission from about 2000. It's a Koa. I use this on one of my CDs almost exclusively, and it's a cedar top. This is Kevin Ryan. I actually went to high school with Kevin, which gave me great justification to say, well, I've got to have a guitar from Kevin. So when my wife said, "You don't need another guitar," I said, "Well, it's Kevin. I got to get a guitar from him." But Ryan's very well known for making great guitars, and so I use this one a lot. Really records well. It's got the Barbera pickup in it, so I use it live as well. Probably difficult to see there, but that was actually somewhat traumatic because this guitar had a gorgeous fossilized ivory, fossilized walrus ivory saddle. I still have it, but I popped it out and put this in instead. So that was a little painful just from the cosmetic standpoint.
So does that have the mic as well?
Yes, I've got a little tiny mic right inside the sound hole.
What kind of mic do you use?
Mostly these days I've been using an Audix mic. It's called the L50. It's just like a little lapel mic. And there's others. A lot of people use the DPA mics, and I've used those over the years. The DPA mics are a little bit expensive, and you can find them used on eBay, but sometimes they're a little abused. So I've ended up eventually going to the Audix mics because they're readily available and they're not as expensive.
Do you have issues with feedback with those systems?
If I turn on the mic a lot, I'll have feedback for sure. So that's one benefit of a dual source pickup system. In fact, that's the reason maybe to have multiple sources. You could have a pickup that has a magnetic and an undersaddle or a soundboard and a mic. And in the ideal situation, you pick those according to which sound good and which aren't going to feed back. Then all of a sudden you find out you got to play louder. Maybe the mic goes off, the magnetic comes up, and you can balance out what you need and avoid feedback that way.
I saw a video last week. A guy had the K&K installed with an extra jack just as a backup, just in case the main one failed. That's a great idea. Well,
I usually use a stereo jack so that everything comes out of just one, just one pin jack in these. Got a strap here on it, but just a single. But it's a stereo jack, so I use a stereo cable, and I can get two pickups out. They don't make any jacks that I know of that do 3. So as soon as you go to more than 2, you end up adding more holes.
Do you have any demos of the Barbera, of your recent guitars? Of this latest pickup you're using? Have you got any demos of that?
I think there's one on my pickup page.
Okay, great. I'd like to hear that, and especially as they're in New York as well.
I believe I have some other samples that aren't on my pickup page. I'll send them to you offline if you want to share them.
Yeah, please. Well, I'd like to check it out for sure. All right, awesome. So, where can people find out about you and what you do? Where are your? Do you have a YouTube channel and website and everything?
Yeah, I have. Well, I have a website, DougYoungGuitar.com, and I have a YouTube channel, which I think is also just Doug Young Guitar. YouTube/channel/Doug Young Guitar, something like that. But it's definitely linked to on my webpage.
Awesome.
You go to my homepage and you'll see some of the other stuff I'm up to. I've got a bunch of books that I've been writing. CDs. Just released a duet CD with Taya Gherkin.
Vic just said that. Hopefully you can promo your new CD with Taya Gherkin.
Yes. We just released that just in time. We had a whole bunch of gigs lined up to launch it and have CD release parties, and bam. So we're sitting at home. Yeah. But we have lots of CDs if anybody would like one.
yeah, check it out. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll put those links. If you send me those links, I'll put them in the description below. So if people are watching, they can go straight to you and they can subscribe to your channel. If you're watching me for the first time, please subscribe to my channel. I've got more interviews coming, and I'm going to email Taya as soon as we get off the air and ask him to set that up. So make sure you subscribe, because then we'll get his we can talk to him about the CD as well.
Terrific.
And what his thoughts are on all this as well. But thank you. I knew this would be a big topic. I hope we can do this again sometime, because it is such a big topic. But I think it was really great information, and I really enjoyed just getting to know you. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
David says, your website is an awesome pickup review page. Yes, it is. That's one of the best resources around. So check that out. And also check out I've got about 16 now on my channel, which is
You've been doing a lot.
I don't want to do any more. I want to get to the stage where I'm like, I've done them all. And if I suddenly think, oh, I need to get K&K again, I can go listen back and think, oh, no, I don't want it for this so-and-so reason. That's kind of why I did it. I want to have less gear. And one great thing recently, like I said before, is this has forced me to be more productive, create more content, create more music. And let's not forget that's what we're ultimately trying to do. Again, without trying to sound like I'm being condescending, because I have obviously spent many years on the very topic we're discussing. But I do find it interesting. I can't wait to see what happens with it all next. And you were the man to talk to. So thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. It's been excellent.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Stick around. I'll say goodbye to you offline, Doug. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us. We really appreciate it. Okay? Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.